On the Hawks, Garrett, this is Luka Doncic has been hurting my feelings more so than any other player.
Hurt the Knicks too.
I mean, that too. When I saw that the Mavericks were the number one, the favorites to land Trae Young in a potential Trae Young trade was just like that. That was enough for me to like just go take a walk around the neighborhood where anything like that ever were to happen. Now that it's Landry Field show, I'd have to do some really strong thinking about how much investment I can do with this team going forward. If it ended up being Trae and Luka as a co-star unit in Dallas after everything, would just be too much for me, Garrett. It'd be too much. But the Trae stuff, the fact that it's out there, and a lot of Hawks fans got really upset that this was thrown out by Bleacher Report. And I'm like, yeah, there's one thing that Chris Haynes loves to do. It's just stir up things that have no rhyme or reason about them. It's like, no, there are people in the know. This is not like just, he's not doing it for clicks. It's not what's happening here. There is smoke somewhere. And there is smoke when you think about Trae Young not playing in that game a few weeks ago on that Friday, and the weird stuff between him and Nate there. There's some smoke that it's clear when you watch Trae and Dejounte on the court together. It's my turn, your turn, that they are better when they're staggered, and that Nate deserves credit for staggering them really well. But
he's done well this year.
Closing games, opening games, it's still just they haven't quite figured out the best way to do it. That's why like their plus minus with that group is fine. It's a little bit passable, but it's about even. It's okay. It's not lighting the world on fire. It's not just like, whoa, this was the missing piece. And I'm not surprised that the report is basically like, if this Hawks team does not make a deep Eastern Conference Finals run or another one like what he did in 2021, then things are going to get rocky. Because this is like that we said before the year, you, Max, and I was like, this is it. You've given up all the remainder assets. This is it. Like, you have traded for Dejounte Murray, the picks, everything. Like, you have tied the Trae Young era to this trade. Whatever happens here, because like John Collins is not bringing any like just franchise altering guy to really change the season. Yeah. It's not going to happen. I don't know. It's still TBD because people forget that the Celtics were a 500 team in February of this past season, and then they go on their run and they all break out, and now they're one of the best teams in basketball and have been that for a year and a half. Mm-hmm. But there's still that opportunity because the talent, the 7-8 man rotation, the Hawks can still throw out when they're healthy, and they have not been healthy. Kind of like last year around this time where they were just Lance Stevenson was getting minutes, and you're like, well, if they were only healthy. But it's like 2 years in a row where it's like, if they were only healthy, then we could really get a good read on what the Hawks are. But I think there's just a lot of moving parts, and I just think there's a lot of pressure on this organization. I think part of the reason that Schlenk is no longer calling the shots here is that there's just a lot of pressure from up top to make this work. Like, you traded for Dejounte, and we're a play-in team right now. And I don't know. It's still really hard for me to get a read week in, week out, because like there's pros and cons. Like, AJ Griffin was a home run pick. Like, he's going to be a really good player.
Travis Schlenk is a wizard.
Yes.
Picking 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
Well,
wizard.
Not
but you got Kevin Huerter there. He got John Collins there. True. He got AJ Griffin there. But his top picks, man, when he's picking in the lottery, he gets Cam Reddish. He gets DeAndre Hunter, who's a fine player
when available.
And
Nyeka
who has not taken the next step
in
his progression at any stage. He's still the guy from his rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And now Capella's out.
Yeah, now Capella's out again. Trae Young's hurt. The whole damn team's hurt. You talked about it a little bit. Like, this team can't stay healthy. And you said there's
it's hard to get a good read on him.
Well, you said there's smoke, and I don't think it's smoke yet. We're in that situation where somebody flicked a cigarette into a bunch of leaves.
Mm.
Maybe it'll catch, maybe it won't. Not exactly smoke yet. It could catch, and if it catches, it'll burn your house down. But we're kind of in that situation right now. But cigarette's probably just going to go out, and it'll be fine. Like, that's really where we are. But
I mean, would it really surprise you if this team right now, they're a playing team, if they get trounced by the Celtics in a round 1 series.
Oh, they'd get eviscerated by the Celtics.
But that's what I'm
If
saying.
the Hawks stay where they are, well,
What
we're in
happens
that
this summer?
situation now. If they make the playoffs as the 8th seed or whatever, they're going to get eviscerated by the Celtics, and then people are going to get like, all right, dude, we're right back to where we were in 2010. Like, thank God we have our superstar. That's what everybody always said. We only need a superstar. Well, now we've traded everything away and we have the superstar. Now we're still getting eviscerated in the first round. You know why? Because winning in the NBA is very freaking hard. It's very hard, especially if you don't have one of the elite players, which I think Trae Young is one of the elite players. I think he absolutely can be. I think this team could be a top 5 team. I'm still confident that this can be a 4-5 team. Just haven't had them healthy. And we haven't had the entire team, the original planned rotation of players. I'm not including AJ Griffin. I'm talking about Bogey Bogdanovic. We didn't have him until December 2nd. You know? And then as soon as he comes back, they played one freaking game together. Just one. Because Bogey comes back and John Collins is hurt. And John Collins and DeAndre Hunter were injured. Great. And then those guys come back and Clint Capella goes out. And it's just this endless cycle. We played one game with a full rotation of healthy players, and we won by 25 points. And then they all got hurt again. And that's where we are. And then, so we can't really judge this team as a completed product because they're not a completed product, because they haven't played together. So this is a perfect example. You talked about the Celtics last year. I'm not saying that they're going to go be the Celtics and go play in an NBA Finals and play one of the best second halves that we've seen in the last decade. No, what I think that this team could be is a very damn good basketball team when they're actually healthy and playing together. The only question is, are we actually going to see that team play before we get to the trade deadline? Because if we get to the trade deadline and we're still where we are right now, I guarantee you Wrestler is going to stick his fingers in this and try and blow something up. He's going to do it. I have a feeling that that's what happened with Travis Schlenk. I think that that's what's going to happen with Landry Fields. I think Landry Fields is a bit of a yes man to Tony Wrestler, and that's why he got put in that position to be the general manager. I'm a little worried. This next 2 months, well, really month and a half, critical basketball. Nate McMillan has to figure it out. He has to get some wins up on the board. He has to. Whether that's figuring out with Trae Young, whether that's just literally just doing whatever you need to do. Just get some wins, because this team is teetering on very bad.
And how are they 27th in free throw rate? They're 30th in 3-pointers made. Like, that's just the biggest indictment.
It's embarrassing. But that's the thing that was turning itself around this last month. This team was very bad from the 3-point line. Trae Young was abysmal from 3 in the early part of the season. It was just a slump. And that's just what that happens to players. Like, that's okay. But he's finally back up to like that 32.
He's 31% right now.
Yeah, so he's getting up to like that 33% is like really your threshold. Like, if you can shoot 33%, you're a good 3-point shooter.
He was 38% last year.
And I think he's trending back towards that direction. I think that's where he lives. I mean, he's in that 35 to 38 range. And just with the volume of shots that he takes, I mean, he's got.
I just think he's going to bounce every year. I think one year he'll be 39, 40, and then the next he'll be back down to 34.
He's 33. Super inconsistent. Yeah. And that's just, I think we've just come to know Trae as just a very inconsistent player who can be a pull your hair out type of player, or he'll be the best damn player on the court. Like, he's one or the other, and it's very rarely anything in between. He's a guy who's scoring 35 points and dishing out 15 assists, or he scores 25 points on 25 shots. You know, it's like, he's going to get his points, but it's just the kind of player he is. And it's very frustrating sometimes, but you know, you take the good with the bad, because this is the bed we've made. So you got to sleep in it. I just hope it gets figured out before the trade deadline and people start freaking out for real.
Like you said, though, I think with the Hawks, the one thing I've been hard on them, it's just that, like, there's still enough.
We have expectations.
Well, it's also just,
you made moves.
There's enough top end talent that, like, I think we've seen this group obviously make the Eastern Conference Finals. I think Dejounte Murray and what he's done defensively is huge. Like, they're 13th in defense, and he's been everything you wanted there. The shooting is still rough. I think part of it is just Nate's not the guy to maximize his offense. Like I think that's what my concern was going into this year is you're gonna have to be creative to make this group work with Capella being a non-shooter, John Collins being a non-shooter this year. I think the lineups just have too many non-shooters in them a lot of times, and that's just some of it's just injuries, some of it's just
you traded Gallo, you traded
Huerter,
Kevin Huerter. Those are your two of your most
and you
consistent.
knew
Those are
Bogey
your
wasn't
two
gonna be
best
healthy to
bench
start the
shooters,
year.
and
And
they're
you knew
just
Bogey
gone.
wasn't going to start the year. Like that was one of those where you're like, we're going to bank on Justin Holiday, and then we just waive Mo Harkless. Like that was just a money loss. So the Huerter trade is a big part of what's going on, especially earlier this year, because he just would have been so critical to wistanding these. Like they're not 30th in 3-pointers made with Kevin Huerter on this roster. Like that's just not a
no. Even if Bogey's playing, they're not 30th. If Bogey just played the first half of the season, if like assuming he's healthy, this is a top 15 unit. That's how serious.
And then you're top 15 in both ways. And then you're like, oh, we're really cooking with something here.
Really good. Like if you have that, and that's why I'm not hitting the panic button necessarily. We still have 60% of the basketball season to play. We got a long way to go. This team, I'm very convinced that this team has like a 9-game winning streak in it. You know, like this is a team that can just all of a sudden explode. I don't think that they're an NBA title contender. I think that they're a 4 or 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. They're better than 17 and 18, but they also haven't been healthy. They haven't hit their shots. They've played good defense, but it hasn't really amounted to much. And then Nate McMillan has made some frustrating decisions. Like, what was it, Wednesday, where he didn't call that damn timeout? I know Dejounte Murray took the blame or whatever because he's a leader. He's a good player, but which this team needed a leader. And I think Dejounte Murray is that leader. He's quickly emerging into that role, but you're playing a really good Nets team, a Nets team that's won its last 10 games, and you had them on the ropes, had a chance to beat them. You have 6 seconds, 2 timeouts. Call a damn timeout. Man, it's just Nate's frustrated me a great deal this year. But if we have that situation where the one that you set up, where they're in the play-in, and no, he's fired. If they don't make the playoffs outright, he's fired.
Well, I think if they're at this point in 2 months, he's fired. Like if we're in February and they're still at the 8th, 9th seed range, I think he's fired.
No, I don't think so. It would have to be end of the season. No, bottom would have to fall out because you fire him, this team doesn't get better. You don't get better immediately.
Then you just throw in Ime Udoka, right?
You just throw in because you have 90. What was it? What's that situation we had when you had what's the damn coach's name? Who's the last coach for the Hawks? What was his name?
Lloyd Pierce.
Like you fired Lloyd Pierce in February. Everyone's like, oh yeah, we'll just fire him because we did it last time and it worked and we went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Yeah, because you had an assistant coach with 700 games coached on
Nick
your
Van
bench.
Exel, ready to go.
Like, God. I think on our bench, we have one guy who has interim experience and he coached for like 2 weeks. Like, that's what we have on our staff. Everyone thinks that these guys grow on trees, and it's ridiculous to me. But I think you go get like a true offensive-minded coach.
Quinn Snyder, maybe.
What if you go get like Steve Nash or something?
No, I don't want Steve Nash.
Want that at all. I don't want it at all. But it just takes some creativity, and I just don't think that I'm starting to come aboard. I'm coming aboard the thought process that Nate's just not the guy to make this work.
Yeah.
But then that would be the second coach that Trae Young has gotten fired in 3 years, and that doesn't make me feel too good. But here we are. This was an issue for Nate his entire career, though. He's very stoic and he's stubborn and he sticks with the things that he does. It's just who he is, and that's okay. He's had a very successful NBA career, but maybe that's not the best coach for Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks.
Let's just see what happens once Collins is traded for Bogdanovich. Let's just see what happens when that trade happens and they just play Collins or Bogey, the other Bogey. Big Bogey is what we'll call him. Big Bogey and Little Bogey. Big Bogey at the 4.
You'll have Jamison Crowder here too. Yeah. This team just doesn't get better if you trade John Collins, the team doesn't get better.
Well, they have to upgrade the shooting. Like you have no shot with the shooting as is what it is right now. Like you have no shot.
I don't disagree.
So Collins is the one you have to move. Because who else is moving?
He's the only person you can move.
Yeah, so you have to get shooting.
Who else are you going to move? You're not trading AJ Griffin. No one wants anybody else.
No, it has to be for...
Like Onyeka Okongwu. I love Onyeka.
Well, now you have to use him because Capella's out, and you can't even count on Capella. Like, Onyeka can't go anywhere.
Onyeka has been so frustrating, dude. I expected so much more out of him, and he just hasn't delivered. He's just not been the guy that I expected him to be.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens this weekend in the coming weeks. I still think there's enough.
Big month ahead.
Big month.